In a luxurious ballroom, amidst laughter, perfumes, and crystal, the 8-month-old heir becomes the night's attraction. An innocent spoon, a wrong scent, and the sound that terrifies any parent. No heir. When everyone freezes, the nanny whom no one sees as a hero does the unthinkable, improvises, defies orders, and races seconds against death. What happens when power collides with reality, and an unauthorized decision changes a destiny? Before we begin this beautiful story, subscribe to our channel to receive heartwarming stories every day. The night arrived in Bel Air, heavy with humidity and expectation. At the Sterling Estate, in the heart of Los Angeles's most exclusive area, guests crossed the illuminated garden toward the grand ballroom. French crystal chandeliers cast golden light over well-maintained faces. A string quartet played a discreet classical European selection, while white-shirted waiters circulated with trays of canapés and champagne flutes. Arthur Sterling watched everything from a corner of the ballroom, his right hand in the pocket of his Italian tuxedo trousers. He had been a widower for a year and 3 months. The death of his wife, Eleanor, in a car accident on the US 101 freeway, had left scars unseen in photographs. Only in the way he held his body, rigid, ever alert, and in how he oversaw every detail of the party, as if absolute control could prevent another tragedy from entering through the door. His son, Leo Sterling, an 8-month-old baby, slept on the second floor under the care of Maria Sanchez. She was 26, with sun-kissed light brown skin, black hair pulled into a tight bun. She had worked as a nanny for 4 years, always in homes in affluent neighborhoods, always with temporary contracts. She had arrived at the Sterling Estate 6 weeks prior, after a selection process that interviewed 20 candidates. The house manager had praised her calm demeanor during Leo's persistent crying during the interview. Arthur had hired her the following day. What no one knew, neither Arthur, nor the house manager, nor Victoria Sterling, the baby's maternal grandmother, was that Maria carried a small, hard-covered notebook in her worn canvas bag. There, she recorded everything: feeding times, sleep patterns, nighttime temperatures, signs of skin irritation, allergies confirmed by the pediatrician. Leo was allergic to peanuts and tree nuts. The doctor had also warned about sensitivity to strong perfumes, especially those with synthetic vanilla and heavy floral essences. In the notebook, with neat blue penmanship, Maria had written on the first page, "Inhaler always in bag. Clean plastic cup in pouch. Emergency 911. Cedars Sinai Medical Center, 310-555-010. Maria Sanchez came from Boyle Heights, Los Angeles. She lived with her younger brother Mateo, 17, in a modest apartment in Boyle Heights, rented at a low-income rate for Los Angeles. Mateo suffered from severe asthma. Since he was 12, he would wake in the middle of the night, struggling to breathe. Maria had learned, through repetition and fear, how to act when his breath failed. She had also learned that ambulances were slow, community clinics closed early, the rich had private emergency rooms, and the poor had overcrowded public hospital corridors. Hence, the inhaler went along. Hence, the plastic cup went along. Hence, the notebook went along. Downstairs, in the ballroom, Victoria Sterling greeted a couple of entrepreneurs with the smile of one who knew exactly her place in the world. She wore a French lace gown in champagne and a perfume Arthur recognized from a distance, Shalimar by Guerlain, the same one Eleanor used, the same one the pediatrician had asked them to avoid near Leo. Arthur swallowed the urge to say something. Victoria was Eleanor's mother. She was Leo's grandmother. She was the only living link he had to the woman he had loved. To confront her seemed like unnecessary cruelty. The event manager, Julian Thorne, moved through the ballroom with a discreet walkie-talkie at his waist. He commanded 8 waiters, 2 security guards, and an outsourced kitchen staff. He had been hired 3 weeks prior, warmly recommended by one of Arthur's partners. The promise was simple: an impeccable night, free of incidents, scandals, or anything that could tarnish the Sterling family's image. Julian was 42 and had a career built on well-calculated shortcuts. He knew how to cut costs without anyone noticing. He knew how to switch suppliers at the last minute. He also knew how to protect his own skin when things went wrong. On the afternoon of that Saturday, he had received a call from the dessert supplier. The original cake, ordered from an artisan bakery in Silver Lake, wouldn't be ready in time. An oven malfunction. Julian had no doubt. He called another, cheaper supplier, who promised to deliver a practically identical option in 2 hours. What Julian failed to do was check the ingredient list. What Julian failed to do was inform the kitchen staff of the change. What Julian failed to do was read the warning Maria had taped to the pantry refrigerator. Leo, allergic to nuts, cannot eat, cannot be near strong smells. In case of emergency, EpiPen in the white cabinet, middle shelf. The substitute dessert contained almond paste. Not much, just enough to provide texture and an impression of sophistication, the supplier claimed. Julian Thorne had also decided on his own to store the epinephrine auto-injector in a safer place. He thought it risky to leave a medication needle within reach of any employee. What if someone got hurt? What if there was a lawsuit? Better safe than sorry. He had locked the EpiPen inside a cabinet in Arthur Sterling's office, on the 2nd floor, far from the ballroom, far from the pantry, far from anywhere it could be easily found. The key remained on his keychain hanging from his belt. Meanwhile, in Leo Sterling's room, Maria Sanchez finished the night routine. A warm bath, unscented moisturizer on delicate skin, cotton pajamas. She turned on the humidifier and adjusted the air conditioning temperature to 73 degrees. Then she sat in the rocking chair beside the crib and watched the baby. Leo's eyes were closed, his tiny fists clenched, his breathing regular. A healthy baby, a protected baby. Downstairs, the string quartet's music shifted its tone. Now it was something more cheerful, more festive. Someone started to laugh loudly. Someone toasted. Someone asked to see the air. Victoria Sterling ascended the marble staircase with firm steps. She knocked on Leo's bedroom door and entered without waiting for a reply. Maria Sanchez rose from the chair, instinctively placing herself between the grandmother and the crib. "Good evening, Mrs. Sterling," she said in a low, firm voice. Victoria Sterling smiled. It was a polite but cold smile. "I've come for my grandson, just for a few minutes. The guests are asking to see him." "The pediatrician recommended avoiding crowds," Maria Sanchez replied, keeping her voice calm. "Leo is sensitive to perfumes, and there are a lot of people downstairs." "I know how to care for my grandson, dear." Victoria Sterling's voice was sweet, but the weight behind her words was evident. "You're new here. I've known this family for 30 years. Maria Sanchez took a deep breath. "I understand, Mrs. Sterling, but the doctor was very clear. Leo cannot. Leo is my grandson, and this is my home." Victoria Sterling did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Maria Sanchez looked at the baby. Then she looked at Victoria Sterling. She knew she couldn't win this battle. Not tonight, not in this house. She was an employee. Victoria Sterling was family. "I'm coming with you," Maria Sanchez said, firmly. "If he's going downstairs, I'm coming with you." The descent of the staircase was quick. Victoria Sterling held Leo in her arms, wrapped in a white wool blanket. Maria Sanchez walked alongside, her canvas bag slung over her shoulder. She had already checked twice. The inhaler was there. The plastic cup was there. The notebook was there. The ballroom erupted in murmurs of approval when the baby appeared. Women approached with wide smiles. Men in tuxedos waved from afar. Victoria Sterling positioned herself in the center of the room, like a queen displaying the air. Leo Sterling, awakened by the noise and lights, looked at everything with wide eyes. Arthur Sterling crossed the ballroom in 3 long strides. "Mother, what are you doing?" "Showing off my grandson to our friends," Victoria Sterling replied naturally. "There's nothing wrong with that." The pediatrician said, "The pediatrician exaggerates." Victoria adjusted the blanket on Leo Sterling's shoulders. "This child cannot live in a bubble." Maria Sanchez remained silent, but her body was tense. She watched Leo with surgical attention, the color of his skin, the rhythm of his breathing, his posture in his grandmother's lap. A waiter approached with a tray of desserts. He offered one to Victoria. "Chocolate mousse with almond paste, madam." Victoria took a small spoon and tasted it. She closed her eyes, savoring the moment. Delicious. Then, with a gesture that seemed completely natural, she brought the spoon close to Leo's face. "Just smell it, sweetie. Doesn't that smell good?" Maria took a step forward. "Victoria Sterling, please, no." Too late. The spoon touched Leo Sterling's lower lip. A minimal touch. 1 second. Then Victoria pulled her hand away, laughing. There, just to smell it." Maria did not take her eyes off the baby. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Leo Sterling began to lick his lips. Then he frowned. Then he started to writhe in Victoria's lap. "He's tired," Victoria said, passing the baby to Maria. "Take him upstairs." Maria took Leo Sterling into her arms and felt it immediately. His breathing was different, faster, shorter. His chest rose and fell in an irregular rhythm. She said nothing. She simply turned and began to walk toward the staircase, slowly, without running, without alarming anyone. But halfway there, Leo Sterling coughed, a dry, strange cough, and then he began to cry. It was not a common cry. It was a high-pitched, desperate sound, as if he were gasping for air. Maria quickened her pace. She climbed the stairs, crossed the hallway, pushed open the nursery door. She laid Leo Sterling on the changing table and observed him. The baby's skin was beginning to splotch. Small red patches appeared on his face, on his neck. His eyes welled up. His breathing became increasingly difficult. Maria opened her bag. She grabbed the inhaler. She grabbed the plastic cup. She improvised a rudimentary spacer, fitting the inhaler's mouthpiece into the bottom of the cup. She brought the cup to Leo Sterling's face and administered 2 puffs. "Breathe, sweetie, breathe." Her voice was firm, but her hands trembled. Leo Sterling cried louder. His chest rose and fell with visible effort. Maria ran to the white cabinet. She opened it. She searched. The epinephrine auto-injector was not there. She rummaged through the shelves. Nothing. She returned to the changing table. Leo Sterling's lips were turning purple. "No, no, no," Maria murmured. She picked up the baby, turned him on his side, checked his mouth. Nothing was obstructing it. It was an allergic reaction, anaphylaxis. She screamed into the hallway. "Someone! I need help here, now!" Miss Evelyn Hayes arrived first, breathless. Behind her, Arthur Sterling. Then, Victoria Sterling. "What happened?" Arthur Sterling asked, his voice harsh. "Allergic reaction," Maria answered, without taking her eyes off Leo Sterling. Where's the epinephrine auto-injector? It's in the closet. It's not. I already looked. Arthur Sterling crossed the room in 2 strides and opened the closet. He rummaged. Nothing. Where the hell is it? He spun, searching with his eyes. Where is the damn epinephrine auto-injector? Maria Sanchez was already on her knees on the floor, Leo Sterling lying on the rug, applying the chest compressions she learned in the first aid course. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The baby did not respond. Call 911. Maria Sanchez yelled at the house manager. Now! The woman ran out. Victoria Sterling stood at the door, pale. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Get out of the way. Maria Sanchez growled. She had never spoken to anyone like that, but in that moment, she wasn't an employee. She was the only person in the room who knew exactly what to do. She continued the compressions. Leo Sterling's chest rose and fell under the pressure of her fingers. Small, fragile, dependent. Arthur Sterling was now on his knees beside her, his face drenched in sweat. What do I do? Tell me what to do. Look for the office key. Maria Sanchez did not stop the compressions. The epinephrine auto-injector might be there. He ran out. Maria Sanchez tilted Leo Sterling's head back, opened his mouth, placed her mouth over his, and blew twice. The baby's chest rose, but there was no cry. There was no reaction. Don't give up on me, Leo Sterling. She returned to the compressions. Don't give up. By the door, Victoria Sterling collapsed into a chair. This isn't happening. Not again. Not again. Maria Sanchez did not look at her. She had no time for solidarity. She had no time for anything but saving that baby. The sound of the ambulance siren tore through the night. Voices yelled downstairs. Footsteps rushed up the stairs. 2 paramedics entered the room carrying an equipment bag. Maria Sanchez continued the compressions until one of them touched her shoulder. We'll take over now. She stepped back, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Her uniform was drenched in sweat. Her hair had come undone from its bun. She leaned against the wall and watched as the paramedics worked. Oxygen mask, cardiac monitor, IV access, epinephrine injected directly into the vein. Leo Sterling coughed, spat, then cried. He cried loudly, raggedly, furiously. And that cry was the most beautiful sound Maria Sanchez had ever heard. One of the paramedics looked at her. You did the compressions? She nodded, voiceless. You saved his life. The man was not exaggerating. 1 more minute, and we couldn't have reversed it. Leo Sterling was placed on a small stretcher, still crying, still struggling to breathe, but alive. The paramedics carried him downstairs. Arthur Sterling followed, without looking back. Victoria Sterling remained seated in the chair, her face in her hands. Maria Sanchez closed her eyes and slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. Her legs could no longer hold her. Outside, guests murmured. Some had already left. Others remained in the garden, awaiting news. Julian Thorne, the event manager, was in Arthur's office, clutching the key to the cabinet where he had locked the EpiPen. His hand trembled. He knew. He knew exactly what he had done, and he knew there was no turning back. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center received dozens of emergencies nightly, but nothing prepared the staff for Arthur Sterling's arrival, carrying his son in his arms, his face distorted with panic. A resident pediatrician immediately recognized the surname. The Sterlings had an entire wing named in the family's honor. But protocol made no distinction between rich and poor. Leo was taken directly to the stabilization room. Arthur remained outside, pacing circles in the corridor, his hands clasped behind his neck. Each second felt like an hour. Every sound from the room, the beeps of monitors, the rapid voices of the medical team, the muffled cry of the baby, pierced him like glass. Maria Sanchez arrived 20 minutes later, brought by the house manager in an Uber. She had not been invited, but she had not been stopped either. She entered the hospital with her canvas bag on her shoulder, her uniform creased, her hair still undone. When she saw Arthur in the corridor, she stopped. He looked at her, said nothing, simply gestured with his head, indicating the chair beside him. She sat. They remained like that, side by side, in silence, for 40 minutes. When the doctor finally emerged from the room, both stood simultaneously. "He is stable," the doctor announced, weary but professional. It was a severe anaphylactic reaction. If not for the resuscitation maneuvers performed before the ambulance arrived, we likely would not have been able to reverse it. Arthur swallowed hard. Will he be all right? He will need to remain under observation for 48 hours. But yes, he will be all right. May I see him? The doctor nodded yes. Arthur entered the room. Leo lay on a pediatric gurney connected to wires and tubes, but breathing. His eyes were closed, his chest rising and falling at a regular rhythm. Alive. Arthur approached slowly, as if any sudden movement might shatter the moment. He touched his son's hand, small, warm, real. Behind him, Maria Sanchez remained in the doorway. "Come in," Arthur said without turning. She entered. "Thank you." His voice was hoarse. "You saved my son." Maria Sanchez did not reply. She simply looked at Leo. Her work was done. Arthur finally turned to face her. "The EpiPen. Do you know where it was?" "No. I will find out." It was not a promise. It was a certainty. The doctor returned with a clipboard. "We need to run some tests, and I will request a full report on what caused the reaction." "It was the dessert," Maria Sanchez said, her voice firm. "Victoria Sterling gave him a taste. It tasted like almond." The doctor made a note. "Peanut or tree nut?" "I don't know, but it had something. We need to run tests." The doctor looked at Arthur. "We also need to know if there was exposure to any other allergen. Perfume, cleaning products." Arthur closed his eyes. Victoria's perfume. Shalimar. Synthetic vanilla. Heavy floral essence. "There's a perfume," he said. "My mother-in-law uses it. The pediatrician had already warned us." The doctor made another note. "I'll include it in the report." When she left, Arthur leaned against the wall. I knew, and I did nothing." "You didn't know this would happen," Maria said. "I knew it was risky." He ran a hand over his face. "I knew, and I let it go because I didn't want to create conflict, because it's easier to pretend everything is fine." Maria didn't respond. It wasn't her place to absolve or condemn. "Who locked up the EpiPen?" she asked. "I will find out." And he would. They returned to the Sterling estate at 5 in the morning. The ballroom was empty, the lights off. The floor still messy with party remnants. Waiters had left. Guests had left. Only Victoria remained, sitting alone in the living room, still in her lace dress, the wine glass untouched on the table beside her. Arthur entered and stopped in front of her. "He's going to be fine," he said, his voice hard. Victoria looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen. "Thank God. Thanks to Maria." Victoria looked away. "The dessert you gave him had almond," Arthur continued, "and your perfume aggravated the reaction." "I didn't know." "You knew, Mother. The pediatrician warned you. I warned you. Maria warned you. You chose to ignore it. I wasn't going to let my grandson become a prisoner because of medical fuss." Victoria stood up, her voice rising. "That doctor exaggerates. You all exaggerate. My son almost died." Arthur took a step forward. "Almost died because you thought you knew more than the doctors, more than me, more than the nanny who was hired precisely to protect him." Victoria opened her mouth to reply, but nothing came out. "From now on, you will follow the rules," Arthur said. "No perfume near him, no unapproved food, no decisions about his health. If you can't respect that, your visits will be limited." You can't do that. I can, and I will. Victoria stood still, her body rigid. Then, slowly, she sat down again. I just wanted him to be normal, for the family to be normal again. Normal doesn't exist, Mother. Arthur sighed. Eleanor is gone. I know you're grieving. I am too. But Leo needs protection, not denial. He left the room before she could respond. In the hallway, he found Julian Thorne. The manager was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, face pale. Where's the key? Arthur asked. Julian pulled a key ring from his pocket. He separated a small silver key. He handed it over. Where was the EpiPen? In your office. Julian took a deep breath. I locked it in there. Why? Because. Julian Thorne looked away. Because I thought it was safer. I thought someone could get hurt. Someone almost died, Julian. Arthur Sterling gripped the key so hard, his knuckles turned white. My son almost died because you decided, on your own, that you knew best. I didn't imagine. You're fired. Get your things and get out of my house. Julian Thorne nodded, without arguing, without asking for a second chance. Arthur Sterling went up to the office. He opened the cabinet. There it was, the EpiPen, on the top shelf, untouched. He picked up the object and stared at it. A small orange plastic tube, a gray button, a hidden needle. So simple, so essential, and someone had hidden it. He went back down and found Maria Sanchez in the kitchen, drinking coffee with the house manager. The two were in silence. Arthur Sterling placed the EpiPen on the table. Never again, he said. Never again will someone hide this. Never again will someone make decisions on their own involving my son's health. Understood? Maria Sanchez nodded. The house manager did too. Maria Sanchez, you keep your job, with a raise. And I want you to teach me everything. Everything you know. How to recognize the signs. How to act. How to improvise. She stared at him. It won't be easy. I know, and you'll have to face your mother-in-law. I know. Maria Sanchez took another sip of coffee. Then let's begin. In the following weeks, the Sterling estate's routine changed. Arthur Sterling hired a company specializing in medical safety to review all household protocols. New first aid cabinets were installed on each floor, all with standardized keys and easy access. Clear signage was placed in every room. The entire staff, house manager, housekeepers, driver, security guards, was trained to recognize signs of allergic reactions and act quickly. Maria Sanchez led the training sessions. She had no formal pedagogy, but she possessed practical experience. She demonstrated how to use the EpiPen, how to improvise a spacer with a plastic cup, how to position a child in respiratory distress, how to perform chest compressions without breaking ribs. The team listened attentively, not out of hierarchy. She was still just the nanny, but out of respect. She had saved Leo Sterling's life. That was worth more than any diploma. Victoria Sterling resumed visiting her grandson, but now adhering to strict rules. No perfume, no bringing food, no making decisions without consulting Maria Sanchez or Arthur Sterling. At first, she resisted. She made acerbic comments about overreaction and fuss. But when she saw Leo Sterling for the first time after the hospital, still fragile, still recovering, something within her gave way. She sat beside the crib and just watched. Without touching, without interfering. I'm sorry, she murmured to Arthur Sterling. I truly believed I was right. I know, Mother. He placed a hand on her shoulder. But now you know you weren't. Victoria Sterling nodded. Tears streamed down her face, silent. Meanwhile, Arthur began to study. He read medical articles on anaphylaxis. He watched first aid videos. He spoke with Leo's pediatrician weekly, asking detailed questions. He wanted to understand. He wanted to be prepared. One night, after putting Leo to sleep, he found Maria in the kitchen, washing a bottle. "Can I ask you something?" he asked. She looked at him. "You can. Why do you carry that plastic cup in your bag?" Maria dried her hands on the dishcloth. "My brother has asthma. Since he was little, we never had money to buy a real spacer, so I improvised with a cup. It worked." "How old is your brother?" 17. "How is he doing?" "Better. Now he can afford his medication properly." Arthur was silent for a moment. "Do you have other siblings?" "No, just Matteo." "And your parents?" "My mother died when I was 19. My father was never present." Arthur nodded, understanding. "You raised your brother by yourself?" "I did." "And yet you found time to take care of other people's children." Maria stared at him. "It's my job." "No," Arthur shook his head. "Work is what you're hired to do. What you did that night went far beyond that." Maria didn't answer. She just went back to washing the bottle. Arthur stayed a few more minutes watching. Then he went up to his room. But before sleeping, he made a decision. The next morning, he called Maria to his office. "I want to make you a proposal," he said. She sat in the chair opposite his desk, suspicious. "I want to create a foundation," Arthur continued, "to train caregivers, nannies, grandparents, teachers, to teach what you taught my staff, to distribute inhalers, spacers, auto-injectors to families who can't afford them." Maria tilted her head. "Why?" "Because I almost lost my son due to negligence. My negligence, the manager's negligence, my mother-in-law's negligence. And I realize this happens in other homes too, not just in mansions, but in modest apartments, in East LA, in South LA, where ambulances are slow, where community clinics don't have medicine. You want to do charity." "No," Arthur leaned forward. "I want to do justice, and I want you to help me." Maria was silent, processing. "How much do I get paid?" she asked. Arthur smiled for the first time in weeks. "As much as you think is fair." The Leo Sterling Foundation was created 3 months later, headquartered in a rented townhouse in Silver Lake. Arthur invested $2 million of his own money. He hired lawyers to ensure the structure was solid, transparent, and auditable. He created an independent board with doctors, social workers, and representatives from underserved communities. Maria was named Director of Operations. She didn't want the position. She thought she wasn't qualified, but Arthur insisted. "You have what no diploma teaches: experience, empathy, courage." The foundation's first action was to distribute emergency kits to public schools in East Los Angeles. Each kit contained an EpiPen auto-injector, an inhaler with a spacer, disposable gloves, a resuscitation mask, a digital thermometer, and an illustrated first aid manual. The second action was to offer free courses for nannies, grandparents, and caregivers. Maria Sanchez personally led the classes, teaching techniques she had learned from life. How to recognize signs of choking. How to respond to asthma attacks. How to improvise when adequate equipment was unavailable. The courses were held on Saturdays, in a church hall in Boyle Heights. Maria Sanchez brought Matteo along. He helped organize chairs, distribute materials, and make coffee for the participants. The boy had improved significantly. His asthma was controlled. He had returned to his studies and dreamed of attending engineering college. Arthur Sterling visited the foundation every week. He didn't just go to sign papers. He went to listen, to learn, to understand the reality of the people the foundation served. On one of these visits, he met Sra Hernandez, a 63-year-old grandmother who was raising 5 grandchildren alone. Her son, the children's father, was incarcerated. Their mother had disappeared. Sra Hernandez worked as a cleaner, earning $1,200 a month. One of her grandchildren had a milk allergy. Another had chronic bronchitis. I didn't know what to do when Junior started feeling sick, Sra Hernandez recounted, her hands trembling. I'd take him to the local clinic, but it always closed early. Once, he almost died because I didn't know I could use a homemade rehydration solution. Arthur Sterling listened to the entire story. Then he asked, "And now, after the course?" "Now I know," Sra Hernandez smiled. "I have the kit at home. I know how to use it. I know what to do. I'm not afraid anymore." Arthur Sterling left the church that day, certain he had made the right decision. But the foundation also faced resistance. Some private schools refused the kits, claiming they already had adequate infrastructure. Some doctors criticized the initiative, stating that lay people should not handle emergency medication. Some politicians tried to appropriate the project, wanting to use the foundation as an electoral platform. Arthur Sterling refused all offers. The foundation was not a showcase, it was work. Maria Sanchez also faced prejudice. In meetings with school principals, she was often ignored or treated as Arthur Sterling's assistant. In one particularly tense meeting, the director of an elite private school interrupted her mid-presentation. "Excuse me, but do you have the qualifications to teach this?" he asked with an air of superiority. Maria Sanchez took a deep breath. "I do. I learned by caring for my brother. I learned by saving a child's life. Do you have the qualifications to listen?" The director flushed. Arthur Sterling, beside her, suppressed a laugh. After the meeting, in the car, Arthur Sterling remarked, "You're getting better and better at this." "At what?" "At not taking any nonsense." Maria smiled. "I learned it from you. Lies. You already knew." She looked out the window. "Yeah, maybe I did." 6 months after the foundation's launch, its impact was already measurable. 230 caregivers trained, 50 public schools equipped, 12 lives saved, documented cases of children who survived respiratory crises thanks to the distributed kits. The press began to cover the story. Newspaper reports, TV interviews. Arthur was called to give talks at corporate events. He always brought Maria along. He always made sure to make it clear, she is truly responsible for all of this. Maria, however, didn't feel comfortable in the spotlight. She preferred to stay behind the scenes, working, organizing courses, revising protocols, answering calls from desperate mothers. One of these calls came on a Tuesday afternoon. A woman from East Los Angeles called, crying. Her 4-year-old son had just had an asthma attack. She had used the inhaler from the kit, but wasn't sure if she had done it correctly. "His chest is still wheezing," the woman said, her voice trembling. "Did I do it wrong?" "No, mother, you did it right." Maria spoke slowly, calmly. "Now I need you to do the following. Sit him up, leaning forward. Let him breathe calmly. If the wheezing doesn't improve in 10 minutes, use the inhaler again, and call me. Okay?" "Okay." The woman took a deep breath. Thank you very much." "You're welcome, mother. You're taking good care of him." When she hung up, Maria stared at the phone. She thought of how many mothers were alone at that very moment, not knowing what to do, with no one to call, no access to information. She stood up and went to Arthur's office. "We need to expand," she said. Arthur looked up from his computer. "What do you mean?" "Expand the foundation. We can't stay only in Los Angeles. People need help in other cities. In New York, in Chicago, in Houston. Do you think we can do it?" "I think we need to try." Arthur closed his laptop. "Then, let's try." In the following months, the foundation opened branches in 5 cities. It hired local coordinators, established partnerships with public hospitals and health departments, created an online channel with instructional videos and a 24-hour emergency hotline. The foundation's budget grew. Arthur put in more of his own money. Other entrepreneurs began to donate. But Maria insisted on maintaining rigorous control. Every cent was audited. Every purchase was justified. No overbilling, no embezzlement. "We're dealing with lives," she would say in board meetings. "There's no room for error." Victoria, who had previously viewed the foundation with suspicion, began to get involved. She didn't take an official position. Neither Arthur nor Maria thought it prudent, but she started attending events, talking with mothers, listening to their stories. On a visit to a school in South Los Angeles, Victoria Sterling met Mrs. Kim, an elderly woman raising twins with severe asthma. The two women talked for almost an hour. When Victoria returned to the car, she was weeping. "What's wrong?" Arthur asked. "She reminded me of Eleanor." Victoria dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. The way she spoke of her grandchildren, the fear of loss, the courage to carry on. Arthur held his mother-in-law's hand. "You're doing the right thing, Mother." "I'm trying." And she was. Slowly, but surely. Leo turned 2. The party was small, just family and close friends. No grand ballroom, no tuxedoed waiters. Just a simple chocolate cake, nut-free, colorful balloons in the garden, and much laughter. Maria was no longer just the nanny. She was part of the family. She ate with Arthur and Leo at the dinner table, traveled with them on vacations, offered opinions on important decisions. Matteo had also grown close. He visited the estate every weekend, played with Leo, helped with the foundation. Arthur paid his tuition at an engineering technical school. The young man was doing well. He earned high grades, had friends, had a future. "Thank you," Matteo said to Arthur one afternoon, as the two organized boxes of kits at the foundation's headquarters. "For what?" Arthur asked. "For believing in us." Arthur stopped what he was doing. "It was your sister who believed. I merely provided an opportunity." "Even so, thank you." The two returned to work in silence, but it was a comfortable silence. That same month, the foundation received a National Public Health Award. Arthur and Maria went to Washington, D.C. to accept the honor. On stage, before authorities and journalists, Arthur handed the microphone to Maria. "I'm not good with words," she began, nervous. "But I know what it's like to need help and not have it. I know what it's like to see someone you love suffering and not know what to do. That's why this foundation exists. Not to save everyone. We can't do that. But to provide tools, to teach, so that more people know how to act when a life is at risk." The audience applauded. Maria left the stage, her hands trembling. Arthur waited for her backstage. "You were incredible," he said. "I was terrified. It didn't show." She smiled. A well-kept secret. Back in Los Angeles, the routine continued. Courses, training sessions, kit distributions, emergency calls. The foundation had become something greater than anyone had imagined. But challenges remained. The public health system continued to be precarious. Many schools still lacked basic resources. Many families still had no access to information. Maria knew she couldn't save everyone, but she could save some, and that was something. One evening, after putting Leo to sleep, she was in his room tidying the baby's clothes when Arthur knocked on the door. "May I come in?" "You may." He entered, but remained standing near the door. "I wanted to tell you something." Maria Sanchez looked at him, curious. "You changed my life," Arthur said. "Not just by saving Leo, but by teaching me to be a better father, a better man. I spent years thinking money solved everything, that control solved everything. And you showed me it didn't. That what matters is care, attention, presence." Maria didn't know what to answer. "I just did what was right." "Exactly," Arthur smiled. "And that makes all the difference." He left the room and closed the door slowly. Maria stood still, looking at the crib where Leo slept. The baby breathed peacefully, his chest rising and falling in a perfect rhythm. She thought about everything that had happened. The night of the party, the race against time, the fear, the exhaustion. And now, the foundation, the lives saved, the mothers who learned, the children who survived. It was worth it. 2 years passed. The Leo Sterling Foundation expanded to 15 states, more than 5,000 caregivers trained, 120 public schools equipped, 37 documented lives saved by people who learned in the courses. Maria, now 29, had become a national reference in pediatric first aid. She gave lectures, wrote articles, participated in debates about public health policies. But she never lost her essence. She continued to answer calls from desperate mothers. She continued teaching grandmothers how to use their inhalers. She continued carrying a clean plastic cup in her bag. Matteo entered the civil engineering program at UCLA with a full scholarship. On the first day of class, he called Maria, crying with happiness. "I did it, sis." "You did," she replied, also crying. Arthur continued to invest in the foundation, but now with help from other entrepreneurs. The initiative had become a movement. Other cities created similar foundations. Other families began to worry about safety protocols. The change was slow, but it was real. Victoria, at 72, had become an active volunteer. She visited schools, talked with grandmothers, shared her own story. The mistake she made, the scare she had, the lesson she learned. "I almost killed my grandson out of pride," she would say in her talks. "Because I thought I knew more than others. Because I didn't want to admit I was wrong. Don't make the same mistake." Her words carried weight, not because she was wealthy, but because they were true. Leo grew up healthy. The nut allergy persisted, but now the entire family knew how to manage it. He attended a school where all staff were trained. He wore a medical alert bracelet, and when asked about the almost invisible scar on his chest, the mark of chest compressions, he would say with pride, "Maria saved me." One Saturday afternoon, Arthur invited Maria to have coffee on the mansion's veranda. Leo was playing in the garden, under the house manager's supervision. "I have a proposal for you," Arthur said. Maria Sanchez raised an eyebrow. "Again?" "Again." He smiled. "I want you to be a partner in the foundation. Not just an employee, a partner. 50%. Maria was silent for a long moment. "Why?" "Because you built this as much as I did. More than I did, in fact. Without you, the foundation wouldn't exist. Without you, Leo wouldn't be alive. You already pay me well. It's not about money." Arthur leaned forward. "It's about recognition, about justice. You deserve to own what you created." Maria looked out into the garden, where Leo laughed loudly, chasing a ball. "All right," she said. "I accept." Arthur extended his hand. She shook it. "Partners," he said. "Partners," she confirmed. That night, Maria returned home, now a 2-bedroom apartment in Silver Lake, purchased with the money she had saved working for the foundation, and sat on the sofa beside Matteo. "Something happened today," she said. "What?" "I became a partner in the foundation." Matteo's eyes widened. "Seriously?" "Seriously." He hugged her. "You deserve it, sis. You truly do." She returned the embrace, feeling the weight of everything she had built. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. But it was real. The story of the night Leo almost died became a legend in the American public health community. Not as a tragedy, but as an example of transformation, of how a crisis can spark structural change, of how privilege can convert into responsibility. Maria never forgot the words her first aid instructor said in the first class she took, still a teenager, in a free course offered by the city in Boyle Heights. "You won't save everyone, but you will save someone. And that is everything." She repeated these words to every class of caregivers she trained. to every mother who called in desperation, to every grandmother who trembled holding the EpiPen for the first time. You won't save everyone, but you will save someone, and that is everything. The Sterling estate was no longer a stage for lavish galas. It was the informal headquarters of the foundation. The ballroom where Leo almost died now hosted monthly board meetings. The office where the EpiPen had been locked away had become a training room. Arthur had learned to measure success differently, not by profit or patrimony, but by lives saved, by families equipped, by mothers who slept more peacefully, knowing what to do in an emergency. Victoria, in her final years, made sure to write an open letter that was published on the foundation's website. I made a grave mistake. Out of pride, out of ignorance, out of arrogance, I almost killed my grandson. But I learned. I learned that love isn't control, that protection isn't possession, that care is listening, respecting, trusting those who know. If you are reading this, do not make my mistake. Listen to the doctors, listen to the caregivers, listen to those on the front lines, because these are the people who save lives. The letter went viral. It was read in schools, shared in WhatsApp groups, printed and affixed to community clinic bulletin boards. Leo, at 10 years old, decided he wanted to be a doctor, not from pressure, but from genuine desire. He had witnessed the foundation's impact. He had heard the stories of the children saved. He wanted to be a part of it. You don't have to be a doctor just because the foundation exists, Arthur told him. I know, Dad, Leo smiled, but I want to. I want to help people like Maria helped me. Maria, present in the conversation, felt her eyes well up. You already help, she said. Just by being alive, you already help. And it was true. Leo's story was told in every course, every lecture, every training. Not as a story of tragedy averted, but as a story of preparation, courage, and action. At the Foundation's last board meeting of that year, Arthur made an announcement. We saved 93 lives this year, documented, verified. 93 children who are alive because someone knew what to do. The room applauded. But I don't want to celebrate only the numbers, Arthur continued. I want to celebrate the people, the Marias, the Sra Hernandez, the Sra Kims, the mothers, grandmothers, aunts, nannies who wake up every day and do the most important job in the world, caring. You are heroes. All of you. More applause. After the meeting, Maria remained alone in the hall for a few minutes. She looked around. The walls held photos of the children saved. Smiles. Life. She thought of the night it all began, of the fear, of the rush, of the uncertainty. She thought of how a plastic cup and an inhaler had made the difference between life and death. She also thought of all the children who had not been as fortunate, of all the families who had lost someone because they didn't know what to do, because they lacked access, because no one had taught them. We won't save everyone, she murmured to herself, but we saved someone, and that is everything. Leo ran into the hall, laughing, alive. Want to play ball? She smiled. Let's. The two walked out into the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. It was a beautiful day, an ordinary day, the possible day, because on a night years ago, someone knew what to do when everything seemed impossible. And that, in the end, was the true victory.